The next speaker is Gian de Belder. He's principal scientist for packaging R&D at Procter & Gamble. And he's going to be speaking about P&G's strategies to meet its Ambition 2030 sustainability goals. Gian.
Good afternoon. So indeed, I will be talking about packaging sustainability and highlight some of the partnerships we believe are really needed to achieve a circular economy for packaging. So this is the kind of agenda. So just one slide introduction of who we are. I hope you all know us. And I'm going to talk a little bit about our sustainability vision, the current Ambition 2030 that we actually just launched earlier this year. And then I will bring it to life with a couple of examples on lightweight introductions and also PCR, post-consumer recycled resin introductions in some of our packs. But the majority of this talk will be on circular packaging and partnerships required to achieve these. Okay. So again, as said, one slide, quickly introducing P&G. I think the most important item of this slide is really the last one. We estimate that we are reaching nearly 5 billion of consumers. So even if we make very small changes to our pack, it can have a huge impact for the globe. Okay. So as said, our sustainability vision is what you can see on this slide. So if I focus again on packaging, we would like to become independent of virgin fossil fuel. So that really speaks then to the use of 100% renewable and recyclable materials in all of our packaging and products, and having zero consumer and manufacturing waste going into the landfills, right? So this is really the vision. And obviously you can only reach a vision if you have a couple of plans in place. And that's what we call our sustainability plan. So Ambition 2030 was launched back in April, May of this year, with the aim to grow responsibly and focusing on the challenges of finite resources and growing consumption in general, right? So this is kind of the renewal of our 2020 goals, the renewal of our environmental sustainability goals. So again, there are many goals in there, but the ones for packaging are displayed on this slide. So 100% of our packaging will be recyclable or reusable. We are working, we will find solutions so that no P&G packaging place will go into the oceans. And we're also very active in finding solutions and recycling technology to recycle absorbent hygiene products, such as used diapers, for example. And I also will come back to that one in one of my last slides. Good. So back in 2010, we have been launching our 2020 goals, and that's obviously what we are working against. Again, a lot of goals there, but the most important for packaging is, again, what you see here on this slide. So it's really focusing on 20% lightweighting, doubling the use of recycled resin. So that really speaks to using more PCR, post-consumer recycled resin. Back in 2010, we were already using 26,000 tons per year. That means by 2020, we need to consume 52,000 tons of PCR in all of our packaging. So that's quite a lot. And then the last one is to ensure that 90% of our packaging are recyclable by 2020 or have progress in place to get them recycled. So that really calls out for having much more collaborations. So those are the goals, and I will bring them now to life by a couple of case studies, right? So the first one, lightweighting. This is one of my favorite examples, the classical Mr. Proper bottles, which used to be in these polyethylene bottles you can see over here. We have been launching a complete new format for this one, which is this very small, tiny PET bottle, where basically the product was concentrated 2.5 times. But at the same time, we also developed a kind of a pump system, a dosing system, which you can see on the top, right? So typically a dosing system is made out of springs and everything like that, which is not good for recycling. And this type of dosing system is made out of 4 components of polypropylene, which are all being designed to get recycled, right? So I think it's one of our nice examples. And again, you can read all the savings over there. But very important, the new pack is fully recyclable and very lightweighted on top. And this one got quite a lot of external awards, and I just mentioned a few of them over here. But I think it's one of our best examples of sustainable packaging design in the last years. So that was the first example on lightweighting. Let's have a look what we are doing on the use of recycled resins. Couple of, I think 2-3 years ago, we made this announcement that for Europe we would load these type of products for fabric care with up to 50% of post-consumer recycled resins. And again, this is pretty easy to do on things like Lenore and Unstoppables, which are just classical PET bottles, and there's already good quality recycled PET resins out there for many, many years. It's obviously also used by the food industry. It's much more challenging to find good quality recycled resins for these white polyethylene bottles, right? With good quality, I mean no smell and as close as possible to the virgin or white look, right? I can tell you up till 3-4 years ago, there was simply no supply here in Europe. Nowadays, I would say there are at least 3-4 suppliers that can give us good quality resins to introduce them, and that's also what we've done for this product portfolio. We even have been launching this one recently in the UK and in France. So it's called the Ariel Pure Clean. So this bottle doesn't contain any master batch anymore. So what you see here is just virgin polyethylene color. And we have been loading this bottle also with 35% post-consumer recycled, right? So you always get the impression sometimes if you talk to the industry that post-consumer is really all these black stuff. Well, I think we've proven here it's not really black, right? Because if you buy this type or if you have looked to these type of bottles which are now on the shelf, you hardly can see that there is post-consumer recycled resin loaded onto these bottles. Also in home care, we have been doing some work. So this one now just actually is being launched. This is the new Viacal bottle that also contains 50% of recycled resin, which now is also clearly depicted on the label. So also consumers can see that it actually is made with recycled resin, which I believe is very important as well. I think everyone has seen our Fairy Ocean plastic bottles. So we believe this is the biggest production in the world. And it's also very important to note that every time we do an announcement of beach plastics, we also make a second announcement at the same time. So in this case, we said we're going to produce 320,000 ocean plastic bottles. But on top, we're going to load all the transparent dish bottles globally with on average 25% of recycled resin use. So you clearly can see the differences here. So the ocean plastic is responsible for 10 tons of consumption of recycled resin, whereas the other announcement is obviously much more impactful. We are talking here about 8,000 tons of recycled resin, right? Important to note, again, these type of beach campaigns, I see them more as awareness campaigns for consumers. So please do not litter and please collect and recycle all those bottles, because we can use them back into our bottles, right? Important also to note, if you buy these bottles, again, they contain 100% recycled resin. So 10% is beach, 90% is actually a plastic collected from beaches. This is something we have been doing with partners, as you can see there. Obviously, TerraCycle, Suez and Loroplast were part of this effort. Before we launched the Fairy Ocean plastic, we also have done similar campaigns for Head & Shoulders, which is more polyethylene. Again, those bottles were launched in June 2017. And also for these ones, we got quite a lot of nice packaging awards already. Again, very similar principle. Together with the launch of the Beach Head & Shoulders, we also announced that all of the hair care bottles in Europe, which means Pantene, Head & Shoulders and some other brands, would contain quite a lot, significant amount of PCR material. Good. So those were a couple of examples of lightweighting and PCR. The rest of this presentation is going to talk a little bit more about the partnerships, which, as I mentioned, are crucial to achieve circular economy. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the new plastics economy, Petcore, C-Flex and Pure Cycle. So let's start with circular economy, right? So you see quite a lot of definitions and so forth. I just have depicted on this slide what it means actually for me, right? So everything starts with design for circularity, and I'm just going to give you in a minute an example of our fabric enhancer bottles. But if you don't design for circularity, I mean, forget about circular economy. Second one is obviously you need to have access to collection, and obviously we're missing there a little bit of harmonization in Europe, I would say. A third pillar is all about consumer education. So we just need to convince consumers to recycle more, because today the best recycled material is actually a PET bottle. But there in Europe, we only have numbers of like 56% of collected. In the US, it's even only 34% or lower, right? So we really need to play on that one. So we need to educate our consumers that they recycle much more. Fourth pillar is about separation. I will talk a little bit in a minute about our pioneering project that we're running. And then if everything is in place, you have access to high quality recycled resin for which you then need to find end markets. And therefore, it's very important to put them back into articles such as packaging, right? If you follow that approach, then we really can talk about circular economy for packaging. So as said, I'm just going to highlight 2 or 3 examples out of that one. First one is designed for recycling. So what you see here on the screen is our Lenore bottle, which now comes with a shrink sleeve with a perforation. And we're actually asking consumers to remove the shrink sleeve before you actually recycle that bottle. Why is it important? Previously, we had these bottles in colored opaque, which is again collected but not recycled. So unfortunately, colored PET bottles, most of the cases, they're either used for energy recovery or landfilled. By doing so, by moving now to a shrink sleeve, we end up with a fully transparent PET bottle, which by the way also contains 50% of recycled content, which is then perfect also to recycle in the next stage, right? So what you see here is just, we kept the decoration, actually we improved the decorations versus the past, but we're ending up with a fully transparent PET bottle and we're just asking the consumers to remove the sleeve. We're also now putting that concept also on other products, as you can see here. So this is the new fabric enhancer bottles in the UK on the market. Very similar concept, right? And in the next months you will see much more introductions of this one. The good thing is that also others are following this concept, so we can educate as an industry our consumers that it becomes kind of common practice, right? So these things, these shrink sleeves, you see a lot in Japan. In Japan, people are educated in a way that every time they recycle something, they remove it. Obviously, in Europe, we are not there yet, and we need to keep educating consumers to do so. Good. I've been talking a little bit about separation. Separation is typically done by means of near infrared. So this is a system in Belgium. So we just collect our plastic bottles and other stuff into a blue bag, which is then laid down onto a fast-running conveyor belt using near infrared to sort out the packaging. That system was working fine in the 90s, where the packaging market was very easy. All the drinks were in PET, all the dairies and detergents were in polyethylene, so a very easy job to sort. Nowadays, it's a very complex market, and the near-infrared machines cannot do an effective job anymore. So that's the reason why we are trying to innovate in that space of sorting. And that's something we are doing together with the new plastics economy, which was also referred by the previous speakers already. So we really want to close the loop on recycling. So I think most of you know the new plastics economy. So we as P&G, we are an active participant, and we are leading one of the pioneering projects. A pioneering project is a kind of a collaboration project run by one organization with the help of many other organizations. So who do we have in that pioneering project? So you see it here. The pioneering project is called Holy Grail. It's all about standardization of tracer and watermark sorting, and I will explain in a minute what it means. But important to note is that you can see it here on the screen. We really have a cross-value chain collaboration. So you see here all the brand owners on top, and again, brand owners like ourselves, but also our competitors, because I think sustainability is something you also have to work as a full industry, including your competitors, right? So Henkel is obviously one of our competitors, but also L'Oreal in the hair care segment is also a competitor to ours, right? Next to that one, we have the big waste manufacturers in Europe, so Suez, Veolia. We have resin producers, both the classical ones, but also the biodegradable ones. And you have then organizations such as EPRO, which is the European Association of Plastic Recycling and Recovery organizations. And we obviously are also glad that we have RAP in there. We have Danone. I mean, previous speakers are also in there. And very recently, we also got Carrefour, because we always have been missing a retailer in there. So since a couple of months, we also have Carrefour in this full value chain collaboration. So what are we doing there? As said, we are trying to find the holy grail of sorting. We are trying to define the new barcode for recycling. what you see on the market is a couple of different technologies out there. So people, since 1997, people have been looking into what can I do with a kind of a tracer system. A tracer system is a kind of an additive you would add to a label or to the material that gives you a unique signal under a specific light condition. So what you see here is that fluorescent particles are added into a label, which gives you a unique signal on the UV light. Okay, and there are many types of tracers like that. I'm aware of at least 10 different systems out there. Okay, a watermark is a complete other and complete new technology. A watermark is basically something you put in the artwork that you and I don't see, but that the camera system, as an easy camera as the one on my iPhone, is recognizing as a multitude of barcodes. So completely new. Okay, I don't need to add any chemicals. It's just a printed item which we can't see. Why is it important to investigate? We just have listed here the top 5, right? So there is a need to make a distinction between food and non-food bottles. So if you collect all the bottles together, there are certain guidelines, like EFSA guidelines, that tell you that a bale of collected material cannot contain more than 5% of non-food PET bottles, for example. Near-infrared today cannot do the job, right? So in some member states, you already see people manually picking them or removing them. And again, we believe with this technology, we are able to do it using digital watermark or trace or whatever it is. Making a distinction between recyclable and compostable packaging. Again, these type of things can do it. And very important also to make a distinction between monolayer and multi-layer, thermoforms, films, you name them, right? So this is a kind of bringing intelligence to a packaging and use that type of intelligence to sort them out. There's much more actually to showcase. If this things wants to switch, yep. These are just a couple of examples, so we can bring it into the printed article. You see there a black printed in-mold label tub. You see a sleeved PET Danone bottle in this case, right? So that contains the watermark, so that's an easy one. But we also have taken it to the next step, so mold integration. So we're now putting these watermarks inside molds. And again, this is an example of a black tray, typically not recyclable, according many people. But if you put now watermarks in there, you actually can sort them out. And the same is actually true for foils. We also have done this on 3D molds. So we also are now able to put the watermarks inside the PET mold and inside polyethylene bottles as well. Okay. So this is just a very quick 20-second movie to showcase what we have been doing. What you see here is the TOMRA R&D Center in Germany, where we basically are testing some of these packs on a running conveyor belt. So what you need is a very simple camera system, as you can see, specific standard light conditions. And you can see that these items are actually being collected and being identified. So by means of these codes, I now can, as a brand owner or as a waste manufacturer, I'm in control. I can define where to sort it out in which type of streams. There are many more benefits of this one, and I'm just going to showcase you one. This is just the black tray that you've seen previously on the screen. It contains the watermarks. It doesn't contain any 2D barcode nor QR code, whatever. That's all gone. And depending a little bit on the lighting conditions, but if I just do it, it's basically giving me whatever type of information I want, right? So this is intelligent packaging without putting NFCs or RFID tags, anything. It's just, we just put it in the print and you can read. There are many opportunities here what you can do with this type of technology. So think about retailers, fast checkouts, all these type of things, right? So very interesting technology. There are many more collaboration initiatives we're taking part of. This is one, Petcore, ODR. So I established the ODR working group. ODR stands for opaque and difficult to recycle PET containers. So that's all the opaque PETs, the full body shrink sleeves, you name them, right? So these are all kind of not recycled today, and we are trying to find end markets for these valuable materials because they're collected, and hence we could use them in an end application. One important one that also fits under ODR is plastic aerosols. So the directives in Europe are changing in 2020, so we can expect a lot of new launches of plastic aerosols. I just have been putting on this slide 2 P&G examples, but there are many more. And hence, we are already trying to anticipate those type of future big launches and trying to make them more recyclable. So the objective is really to have these type of packs fully recyclable with standard PET streams. Last example is pure cycle technology. It's a technology we developed. Actually, my colleagues developed it in the US. It's a kind of chemical recycling of polypropylene, where we basically dissolute the material. We dissolute the collected caps, polypropylene, and we remove the colorant. Right? So this is something we have licensed out now to a company called Pure Cycle. Technology is in the US. They have a pilot plant, and we expect to have the full production plant up and running in 2020. Right? Reason being is that today it's very hard to source good quality polypropylene, meaning very light color, preferably no color. And this is a technology that allows you to do so. C-Flex is another one, and it was already highlighted by previous speakers. So this is focusing a little bit more on the flexible packaging. But again, the concept is similar. It's a full value packaging chain that is trying to find solutions for flexible films. And the last one, as I mentioned in the beginning, diaper recycling. Right? So this is all about dirty diaper recycling. It's obviously a lot of waste, and we're trying to find solutions. So there are basically already 2 plants up and running. There is one in Italy, or I should say there are 2 in Italy now. The idea is that we collect the dirty diapers, or the waste manufacturer is collecting the dirty diapers, and is recycling it into recycled cellulose, recycled plastic, and recycled super absorber. Right? So as mentioned, 2 plants in Italy, and a new plant is actually now being built in Amsterdam. So I think that's it. So thank you very much for your attention. Thank you.